To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejados de las
This here's
puertas.
a wildest ride in the world.
When hinges speak and doors change.
So today on Miles from Main Street, we are talking about Cinderella's Royal Table and Be Our Guest. These are two pretty big and amazing experiences that you can do at Magic Kingdom, and we are going to talk about these two, some of the good things that they have going for them, some of the things that we've heard that aren't that great, or things that we've experienced. And it's going to be a fun one. And I know I've been to one of these. I've been to Be Our Guest several times. And I very much enjoy it. I have not, however, been to Cinderella's Royal Table. So we're going to talk about that, and I'm pretty excited to do it.
This is something I've seen out on the Disney social medias lately. There have been a lot of people that are going, do I go to Cinderella's Royal Table or do I go to Be Our Guest? And they want to know. They want to hear what we think, so we're going to tell you what we think. I think this is a great one for, there's so many people going to Disney World right now, so if we can help you out with this one, I hope it is a help. I have done both, not the same meal type deals, but I think our both experiences here can really help out other people.
Yeah, and I know I've actually had several friends. I had one friend that was going to the parks and literally asked this question where they were like, "Oh, do we go to Be Our Guest or do we go to Cinderella's Royal Table?" And I had lots of really good things to say about Be Our Guest, and I didn't really have much to say about Cinderella's Royal Table, but that is kind of the thing that I see people going back and forth between, especially when you have kids. Kids in this equation is very big, and you're going to find out why. But let's start with Cinderella's Royal Table. Now, I don't have any experiences because I haven't been here. Brian, what have your experiences been like?
So we did this back in 2016. We were visiting the world in October of that year, and it was a very nice experience. We had a great time. I would say it was one of the better meals we had that week. Most of our meals, though, were, if anyone can remember how the dining plan works, they had the 1 credit meals, which were any typical table service meal, but then they had their signature restaurants, which were 2 credits. And so we did this one, I think it was the day we did our Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique day, so I think that was the first day in the Magic Kingdom. This was a long time ago, Mikhailo. 2016 seems like it was millennia ago. But anyway, we did get to sit. It was a different experience than it is right now because you met Cinderella on the way in, and I think that's still how they're doing it. But when you're in the dining room, there are no characters that come out. When we were there, they did come out. And we got 4 different princesses, and it was pretty cool because they had this walkway, I guess, when you first come into the room, and there's a lot of doors. The food comes in and out of these doors, but also the princesses come in that way, and they get their own entrance, so that when they come in, they stop on this walkway, it's kind of like a couple of steps up from the regular dining room. And they'll come in and they'll kind of walk back and forth a little bit as they're announced, and then they start making their rounds around the dining room. So you get 4 princesses. I believe we had Jasmine, Aurora, Ariel, and Snow White come through, which was very cool. All princesses my daughters wanted to see. You have stained glass windows around the castle, which is really cool. You know, your daughters, even your sons, they're going to love that they get to be eating inside the castle. The dining room itself has very large oak tables, heavy furniture. I thought there might have been a little too much furniture in there, so it seemed a little crowded at times. We did see a proposal in there, which was cool. They had a table for two next to one of the windows, and they presented her with a glass slipper on a tray with the ring in there, I believe. I didn't quite catch all of it because I was enjoying the meal with my family, but they had a PhotoPass photographer right there taking pictures, so it was really cool. Very tall ceilings in there. I want to say it was like green carpet. It doesn't really matter. So anyway, it's a one single dining room, and they do have an elevator, but there's like these tight winding staircases to get up to that room. Because you enter on the main floor, like where you would walk through the castle, you would enter at that level, but then you go upstairs to eat. So it's really cool how they do that. The walk with like the stairway, I don't know. It was fun because you could see out at one point. There was a window that you could see out of as you went up the stairs. So that's how I remember it. Again, this was a while back, so it's, kind of remembering all of it, but it was one of our better meals. I believe I had a steak, much fancier presentation than we may have gotten at other places. We did eat at a lot of buffets that week because we wanted to do character meals whenever we could. So it was a better meal. I know that it has gotten a bad rap in the past as far as maybe the food not being as good as the stature they're trying to give it, as far as being a signature restaurant and the 2 credits. But we were very happy with it. I did see a recent review of the place, and they really enjoyed the food. They thought it was really well done. And, without the characters there, maybe they're giving that a little more thought and time. So hopefully it stays that way. This episode is being recorded on March 31st. Why do I tell you this? Because Disney just announced today the character hugs are coming back. We're going to be able to get up close and personal. So how does that relate to Cinderella as well? We don't have the princesses in the dining room right now. You only get to say hello to Cinderella from afar, but that's okay because hopefully in mid-April, I believe it was April 23rd, it was the date. Hopefully they will start bringing more characters back to the dining when that comes along, which would be great because I know my kids love being able to hug all these characters and take pictures with them when we were there and doing this. So, Mikhailo, I have done breakfast at Be Our Guest, and I can give you some of my thoughts there, but I thought maybe you could tell us about dinner.
Yeah, I just wanted to say also, I've heard a lot of negatives from Cinderella's Royal Table, and I think that's sometimes the reason why it's kind of low on my totem pole. Just kind of coming from a perspective of, I'm a couple right now. We don't have any kids, and so I don't know, seeing characters, especially face characters, kind of low on our bucket list for things we want to do. It's definitely there. I want to do Cinderella's Royal Table at some point, just because it's Cinderella's Royal Table. But I don't know. I've heard some negatives about it, and so that's something that has kind of drawn me away from it. However, I did want to mention that I've heard negatives about Be Our Guest before, and I love it there. It's almost, listening to what you were talking about, Brian, it almost makes me want to go try it anyways, because of like, it's almost like the food snobs that talk about these places where they're just like, oh, the food just wasn't that great, or the prices are astronomical for what they're giving you, and all this stuff. And it's like, I went to Be Our Guest and I was very, very pleased with the food that I got and how much I got and all of this stuff. So I don't know. Sometimes it's kind of the food snobs that go and say like, oh, the food's not very good at this place. Like, I mean, this is coming from somebody who constantly goes to like Ohana and all of these other amazing spots to eat and to do their reviews and stuff like that. So, take it with a grain of salt when people give these places a bad rap. I mean, I myself also, being miles from Main Street and not being able to be there all the time and have my own opinion on it, I still listen to them and I still kind of like take what they're saying. But I mean, you got to give it a try. Like, you got to try it for yourself. And listening to what you said, Brian, makes me more receptive to possibly going there. But yeah, that's just what I wanted to say about Cinderella's Royal Table. And I mean, the only other thing that I would add is that it's a lot more like character centric. So if you are just a couple and like you're not super psyched about seeing a bunch of Disney princesses, maybe skip this one. But if it is something like that you want to go inside of the castle and see all of that is something that's appealing too. So you got to take the characters with the inside of the castle. It all comes together. So, but
and to what you were saying about, the critics and the reviews that we get from people, I think that goes back to our discussion about locals and faraway fans a couple weeks ago, where, we have different palates than some of those people because they are constantly eating Disney food and they have become accustomed to some of the better dining that's there for one reason or another. And so when we hear them say this is really good or this is really bad, it may not be good. It may not be bad. It all depends on the person's palate. And so, like you said, it's something that you need to try for yourself and find out. There have been things that I have tried that have been raved about that I don't care for. But there have been things that have not been raved about that I thought was pretty darn good. So, and maybe I'm thinking, oh, I found a diamond in the rough. I should not tell anybody about this one, like a turkey leg. Anyway, back to Be Our Guest.
Yeah, so Be Our Guest. I've raved on this podcast before about Be Our Guest. So I think what I'm going to do, and if you want to find those episodes, they're a little a ways down, not that far actually, because I've raved about it before. But I mean, if you've been listening, you know all about how much I like Be Our Guest, and I very much enjoy it. But so I kind of wanted to talk about the two sides to Be Our Guest, or the two sides of Cinderella's Royal Table and Be Our Guest. Be Our Guest is, I feel like the ambiance of Be Our Guest is amazing. Just kind of like what they've been able to do, and just the theming in there in general, and some of the amazing effects that they've been able to do. Is just amazing. And I mean, I can't talk to Cinderella's Royal Table, but just kind of seeing what it is, and I guess, I mean, it gets points for being in the castle. Like you can't take away, you can't take that away from it. It definitely, that is a huge draw for people. I mean, and it's a draw for me too. Like if, like I said before, it's definitely something that I want to do. I don't know. I just think that it's just a restaurant up in the castle, and the theming at that point definitely is not as strong as Be Our Guest. I do think that Cinderella's Royal Table is more appealing to families with kids. However, like, the argument can be made that Be Our Guest can be that way too. I believe when COVID wasn't happening, you were able to do meet and greets with, not meet and greets, but they would do the same thing as Cinderella's Royal Table, where they would come around and you could meet the Beast, you can take pictures and stuff like that. And then I believe Belle was in there too. And so Belle would go around and do meet and greets. I'm not 100% sure on that. But I believe now, during COVID, I think this will be changing. I haven't heard any specifics on whether or not this will be changing. But during COVID, they just had the Beast like make an appearance and then kind of walk around that middle area, and people could take pictures of him. So I do believe you still kind of get a little bit of meet and greet with characters at this meal at Be Our Guest. It might not be up to the level of Cinderella's Royal Table, because they definitely make it a point to like go table to table and meet all the kids and everything. And so it's a very it's a very good experience for kids. They do that same thing at a couple other restaurants. But this one is a lot more tailored for the princesses and stuff like that. So
I would definitely agree that Be Our Guest, hands down, has much better theming and ambiance than Cinderella's Royal Table. I think you're going to get your kids begging to eat at the castle more than you are at Be Our Guest, because it's more in your face, up front. There it is. The Be Our Guest, though, like, we only ate there for breakfast that day because we knew about the rose in the West Wing. We knew about the theming in the dining room, and we wanted to see all of that. I think it's definitely worth seeing. The stained glass that they have in there is just beautiful, with different scenes from the movie. And the theming that they've done in each of the rooms, the chandelier in the ballroom is just, really pretty. And I think it's well worth seeing. Like I said, I haven't eaten dinner there. You rave about it, so that makes me want to go and try it. It was an expensive price tag for me at the time to say, let's go do it. We were able to enjoy the ambiance for breakfast a lot cheaper, because we just did one breakfast for the two of us. We didn't order two, so it made it a lot cheaper. But I don't believe they're doing breakfast right now, are they?
no, they're not. They are doing lunch, but I believe the lunch is still like it's basically just dinner when you go in there. So you got that going on. And I know that back in the day they had that breakfast and then they had the lunch, and people used to talk about that lunch all the time, about what a great deal it is, because you were getting some like really, really great food, and you were getting that Be Our Guest ambiance. And so people really enjoyed all of that stuff. So, but I believe now the lunch and dinner it's basically the same thing, and you're paying basically the same prices. So people kind of complain about that, and people tend to complain about how expensive the meal is. And I know I've mentioned this before about Be Our Guest, but I just have to say, you are getting a good amount of food. People complain about the entrees not being very big. However, they forget that like you had a soup, you get a dessert. So it's like if they brought everything out to you at once, you'd have a pretty big meal. I mean, at least that's kind of what I was always thinking. So, there's that. There is the price tag to take into account, and I think the price tag for both of these places are actually pretty big. How much is Cinderella's Royal Table?
It's a signature restaurant. I think it was still cheaper than going to Be Our Guest. But I want to say it was around maybe a $64 adult meal. Again, when I went, it was on the dining plan, so I wasn't paying attention to the price. But it might be a little less than that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's pretty much on par with Be Our Guest. I want to say Be Our Guest was around like 60 too. So yeah, you're kind of you're paying around the same prices. And these are two things that people are always kind of going back and forth between our Be Our Guest and Cinderella's Royal Table. So with that question, let's try to answer that question. We'll use my friend as an example. He had kids, and he was asking me like, "Hey, which one should I go to, Be Our Guest or Cinderella's Royal Table?" He did mention to me that his kids were pretty excited about the possibility of going to Cinderella's Royal Table. So I ended up telling him, I was like, "Hey, like you can't go wrong with either one." That's another thing to take into account is, I mean, both of these restaurants are amazing and signature restaurants and very good experiences. I told him at the time, I was like, if you have kids of the age that they want to see characters, and I think at the time they were doing character appearances, like they weren't going table to table. They were just kind of like come out, wave a little bit, do a little bit of interaction, and then leave. But still, like that's still big for kids. So I told them, hey, if you have kids, like they're gonna love this. They're gonna love the fact that they're going up into the castle. So my answer for his question was like, go for Cinderella's Royal Table. Kids are gonna love it. The food, I did tell him that like I hadn't heard good things about the food. So that's one thing to take into account. But I mean, Brian's saying it's good, and I trust Brian. So, but yeah, for when it comes to kids, I don't think anybody's going to be sad that they went to Be Our Guest. But I feel like they're going to have more. I feel like Cinderella's Royal Table is definitely tailored more towards kids and experiences with characters for kids. So I think that's where I would kind of like usher families to go, is Cinderella's Royal Table.
So I did go and look it up. It looks like Disney has them priced the same right now at $62. So, it depends on the ambiance, what you think is better, if you're worried completely about price. And as you were talking about characters, which characters do you want? If I'm looking for characters, I'm going to Cinderella's Royal Table because you're getting a blow-by by the Beast at Be Our Guest. So really, it doesn't, unless you absolutely just want to see the Beast in, the whole deal, if you want to see him, then great, go for it. But on characters alone, I'm going for the sheer number, and you're getting more princesses at the Royal Table. So
yeah, they're both pretty iconic. They both Brian says that they have good food, and I say that Be Our Guest definitely has good food. So yeah, it's kind of a toss up. And I guess looking at it, unless you have some kids that love Beauty and the Beast, I would still kind of like push people towards Cinderella's Royal Table if you had kids. It's definitely the meal that has kids in mind. But yeah, Be Our Guest is also great for adults. I mean, I loved it growing up with Beauty and the Beast, and kind of being able to walk into it, and the way that you're immersed into all of that is amazing as well. So yeah, I would almost say, I mean, and this is definitely not definitive. This could be like if your kids loved Be Our Guest, keep taking them to Be Our Guest because they loved it. Your kids might love Be Our Guest and just not really like Cinderella's Royal Table, or it could be completely opposite. But for me, and everything that I see, if you have a family, if you have little kids and they want to see characters, take them into Cinderella's Royal Table. And if you don't have kids and you're whimsical like me, and you want to see some amazing theming, and you grew up with Be Our Guest, or you grew up with Beauty and the Beast, I'd go to Be Our Guest. But again, it's completely up to you guys, and it's completely up to what your family likes and who you're going with. Who knows? Maybe they'd want to go check out Sunny Eclipse and just eat some hot dogs. So.
Well, and it's hard with this question when I've been given it. I don't know that I've ever really said, go here, go there on this question. I've always said, here's what I think of them. You choose. Like I said, it's a difficult question to answer. All things being equal, they're pretty equal. So it's hard for someone to tell you what to pick. I like what you said, though. You can boil it down to characters. I think we've boiled it down to ambience, right? Which one would you prefer? The dining hall, I kind of mentioned the tables and stuff at Cinderella's Royal Table. I think the dining tables and stuff, they're smaller. They're not as grand, I guess, as you might find in the castle, which is fine. I mean, really, does it really matter where you're sitting? I don't know. Just as long as there's not those little like folding chairs. Have you ever had to sit in those little tiny folding chairs? I always feel like, and I'm a bigger guy, so it's something I deal with, but I always feel like I'm gonna fall backwards or destroy the chair or something. Anyway, the dining tables there are fine. The one thing that rubbed me wrong, and maybe they've gotten rid of it at Be Our Guest, you can tell me that. In the grand ballroom they had the soda machines in there, and everybody was kind of, and this was during breakfast. You'd come in and you'd fill your own soda, and you get your utensils and any condiments that you needed for your breakfast. You would get it all right there. So if I'm trying to eat dinner in that room and you got some of that activity going on, that might not be very settling.
Yeah, I don't think they have that going on anymore. I don't think it's like a get up and get your own condiments type thing anymore. Especially with the fact that they don't have that breakfast. It was set up that way where it was almost like it wasn't quick service. It was more like kiosk. So you'd like walk up to those kiosks, and actually I've been into that room where those kiosks are, and like it's almost like a storage room now, because they're just not going to be using those anymore. At least that I know of. Like they might open that, they might make that lunch again, because people loved it. And so, yeah, I at least I never saw an area that I could go and get utensils and fill up soda. So yeah, it's a lot more sit down, which makes sense because it's a signature meal, and you're paying a lot of money for it. So they're just going to have them wait on you. But that makes sense that, like, I mean, it used to have that component where it was a little more like a cafeteria, not a cafeteria, but it was a little more quick servicey at one point. And they all,
yeah, it was, because you'd come in and you would order on a computer screen, and then you would, I think it was with your Magic Band that they were able to track you, right?
I thought they had roses at one point, and it was almost like Panera, where if you've ever been to Panera and you pick up one of those buzzers, the buzzers actually know what table you're at, and the tables all have numbers. So it was like geo-tracking, but you would pick up a rose and bring the rose to your table, and then they would like wheel your food out with like this like food tray thing or something like that, and then like bring you your food. So yeah, it was people loved that because you still kind of like you did kind of go and order on a kiosk, but you still got that like fancy sit down feel to it. So that's why people just loved that. So that was really talking about hacks. Like that was the hack back in the day, was to go to Be Our Guest for lunch, because you still kind of had that ambiance and you still kind of felt like you were having like a fancy meal, but it was still kind of more quick servicey. So.
Yeah, that's what I liked about it too. Like we just walked in, we grabbed our drinks, we sat down, and they brought it to us. We were able to snag a table in the West Wing, so that was really cool. We could watch the storm go through and the petal fall off of the rose and everything. So that was pretty cool. Back to theming, like they nailed it there. It's definitely in that new theming type of realm for that restaurant. So I don't know what else we can say about these two other than good luck picking one. This is definitely one of those reservations, regardless of restaurant, that you're going to need to get up at 5 a.m. and make your reservation, because it's a hot ticket and everybody wants it, especially nowadays. Like everything's hard to get right now. So you need to get up, you need to plan ahead. There have been some talk on some of the sites that I'm on asking how you possibly get a reservation for name that place. And the best thing I can tell people is that if you're staying for a week long and there is one that you definitely want to get, be it Be Our Guest, be it Cinderella's Royal Table or Olga's Cantina or any of those, plan them for the end of your trip. Because if you're staying on property, you get that 60 days at the start of your trip, but if it's at the end of your trip, then you're getting more than 60 days. So it's 60 days plus the end of plus however many days out on your trip. So you could be booking 65 days out, which is, that's a big help. That's going to help you in getting that reservation. So just a little trick to get you, hopefully get you into these places that we talk about. It's definitely worth getting up early. And honestly, for somebody that eats Wisconsin food every day, anything down there tends to be good. It's hard for me to actually say, don't go there, it was awful. Because Disney just does it well enough that I'm happy everywhere I go. And so you can't go wrong with these restaurants. I think that anything you get, you're going to be happy with. When it comes down to picking between these two restaurants, you're going to be happy. You're going to be happy either one. The biggest regret you could have is, oh, we really wanted to try that other one as well, but we could only get this one. Like, really, like that's not a big deal. You're getting what you want.
Yeah, and I find myself all the time when I'm at Disney just like in awe of like some of the food that I'm eating, especially this last trip that I went on. Just kind of like, this is what food is like. Just like, this is what food can be. Because again, it's like I don't really go to these fancy places all that much in Wisconsin. So it's like you go to Disney for a week, and almost every day you have some sit down restaurant that just like blows your mind. So that's always great. But yeah, that's a thought that I always have, that I'm like, this is what good food is. Like that's always funny. But
as I like to tell people though as well, one last thing, don't be afraid to try new things there, because Disney has a way of making it accessible. And I know we've talked about this in the past as well, but they just know how to make things accessible. So if there's something that you have always wanted to try it. Try it there. It might not be as authentic as it can be, but it gives you an idea if you're going to like it. because it's darn close and it's accessible. So definitely go out of your comfort zone, give it a shot. And you know what? If you're sitting in Be Our Guest and you don't like the steak they gave you, let them know. I mean, they're going to fix it. So don't be afraid if it's something that you're trying for the first time, because Brian on some weird podcast said, go check out this and try it out. Let them know you don't like it. They'll get you something else. So it's worth it.
Yeah, and let us know that you didn't like it. Call us out. Let me know that you thought that Be Our Guest was overpriced and didn't taste very good, because I will have a heated debate with you and argue the other side, because that's what I believe. But yeah, let us know. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you've been to either of these restaurants and what you think of them, and which one would you go to with family, and which one would you go to as just a couple. Let us know.
We want to hear your thoughts. What is on your Mount Rushmore? Let us know on your social media of choice. You can find those links in the show notes. Our web address has changed. Find us at www.milesfrommaineST.com. Check out the new website, where not only will you find all of our episodes, but also news articles, bios, and our affiliates. That's right. If you would like to help out the podcast, please use our affiliate links to order some coffee from Expedition Roasters or maybe groceries with Instacart. We appreciate any of the help that this will give us. Finally, the biggest way you can help us out is to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Facebook. Links to those services can be found in the show notes as well. Thank you for your help.
But that's all we got for you tonight. But remember, some live close,
but others don't.
So let's talk about it. We'll see you next time on Miles from Main Street.